Hello everyone and welcome to Rebel Video. My name is Tom Abadie and we're today with Molly Purcell, who's the president of the SU at the University of Essex. So tell us a bit about yourself and what's your role in the SU.
Yeah, thanks Tom. So I'm president of the Students' Union. So my role is I lead the strategic direction of the Students' Union as well as manage the rest of the Sabbatical officer team, which comprises of 7 other officers. Represent students essentially at the highest levels within the university. A little bit about me. So I was Vice President Services and Engagement last year, and when I was a student I was the elected Community Women's Officer. So I've done a fair bit throughout the SU and as my time as a student, and I'm just really passionate about representing students, and that is what has led me to where I am today.
So obviously this year is your last year at the university, as you can't run again after 2 years in office, but there are many other people who will be running this year in the leadership race. So what kind of things would you say about the leadership race? What's the premise of it?
The leadership race essentially elects all sabbatical officers and community officers to post to represent students of different communities and different sections within their roles. So it's really important to elect these officers, and it's a yearly thing that we have every February-March time for the next academic year to essentially select your student leaders. So that's the main premise of it, I would say.
Okay, so the people who are elected are called sabbatical officers and student community officers. So tell us a bit more about them and who do they really represent?
There's a team of 7 sabbatical officers, including myself, so the SU president, and then a variety of community officers. So community officers represent different section and liberation communities. So liberation communities are, for example, the Women's Network, the Black community, the Asian community, the LGBTQ+ community. Then we've got the section community, so mature students, postgraduate research and postgraduate taught students, for example. They do that alongside their studies, so they don't have to take a year out. Sabbatical officers, that's a full-time paid role, which you can do either by taking a year out of your studies or after you graduate. Each SAB officer represents different things. So you've got the president, which does the overall oversight, but you've also got VP Student Experience, who looks at student experience, funnily enough, so sports societies, V-Team, yourselves at Rebel. We got VP Community and Engagement, which is the role that we changed last year from Services and Engagement. So the VP Community Engagement looks at, oversees the community officers and how we can engage with students further within that and beyond. Also got VP Welfare, again pretty self-explanatory, looks after the welfare of students, works really closely with SU advice, etc. Then we've got VP Southend. VP Southend represents students at the Southend campus. Obviously it's a smaller satellite campus, so there's different needs there from the students. VP Education, who oversees everything education-wise, and VP International, who represents international students on our campus. So that's a bit of an oversight of each of the officers, what it means and what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Great. So in terms of the relationship between the student community and the university, what kind of role does these student community officers or even the sabbatical officers play?
So the sabbatical officers have a more direct relationship with the university. We've got a relatively good working relationship, but we are there to challenge them and to make sure that the student experience remains student focused, because obviously being in the university, sometimes they can be quite out of touch with what we're doing. So we're there to raise student concerns and make sure they're represented at the highest level. And then the community officers can also do the same, but they tend to work directly more closely with us, and then those issues are raised that way. So it's a working relationship, but we're there to challenge them and hold them to account with the stuff they do for students essentially.
So in this academic year, obviously we've been all challenged with the pandemic and COVID-19. How important was it in regards to the pandemic to have these student community officers and the sabbatical officers to really help out the students in terms of their general student experience?
I think, it's such a troubling time at the moment, and to have sabbatical officers and community officers in post to be able to raise those concerns and take them forward if necessary is so important. There's not really many other avenues you can go down. Obviously the Students' Union is there in general to support and represent students, but to be the political force behind things is why we're here. So it's important now. It's always been important, it's important now, but it's even more important going forward as we start to come out of COVID-19 especially.
Obviously, students later down the line will be voting for the big plan, and that's something we will explain further down the line. But how important do you think it is to be voting this year for the leadership race, and why should students engage with the whole leadership race?
At a time when we're in a complete crisis, the SABs really are there to represent the views and the needs of students at the moment. I think in a normal world we'd be focusing on really great and incredible things that might be slightly extra to the student experience, but now it's about survival and really making sure that students feel supported and represented. So now more than ever it's so important to vote for who you think can lead the organisation out of the pandemic essentially, because we are the leaders of the organisation structurally as well. We work really closely with the director team, etc. So we're really there to make change happen and make sure people feel supported.
Obviously, with every year we know that people will vote for their friends and so on, but we also know that these are the people that will represent them throughout the year and for years to come. So it's really important for everyone to engage. I think that's about it. Is there anything else, Molly, you want to mention?
I would just say I can't say enough how important it is to have your voice heard, take part in the democratic process of an election. Make sure you vote for the candidate that, that you feel will best represent you, what skills they have, etc. on going forward through this pandemic and, beyond that. So yeah, really important, can't stress it enough, get involved where you can.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Molly, for coming, and hopefully this will engage people to get to the ballots, obviously online, but it's our own little politics, but it's important for everyone to get out there and to vote. Thank you for coming.